Well, actually, you don't need to go to college for computer science. You could do a coding class in a couple months.
Yeah.
Alphabet is hiring right now.
You could get a job at Alphabet, Google,
yes.
for taking a C++ class?
Correct, yes.
Yes.
They're hiring coders after a 60-day coding class. To answer your question, a country that ceases to secure its own sovereignty and does not think I care more about my own people than the foreigners ceases to be a country. You're a colony and you're something else. And we are seeing our generosity be taken advantage of. I am all for American charities going down to Panama and helping out. I'm all for people giving to charity.
So we should reallocate U.S. spending towards things that are actually effective for people in and outside of our borders.
Well,
so then we don't have people coming into our borders, and then we can help our people.
Well, no, the way, again, if they come to the border and the border is closed and you say, hasta la vista, go back to Nicaragua.
Or we spend in Central America.
What should the punishment be for breaking into a country?
Depends on the crime you commit after you break into it.
Okay, no, that's it. I'm talking about just the crime is breaking in. What should the punishment be? I break into somebody's home. What should their punishment be?
Can you repeat that?
Oh, so if you behave after you get here, that's fine. So to play that out, if someone comes into your dorm room uninvited and they do the dishes and laundry, they can stay?
If I'm not going to do my own dishes, heck yeah. They're doing my dishes for me? Cool. If they don't kill me, I'm not dead. It is what it is, man.
The point is this, is that most kids know deep down they're getting ripped off. The number one thing I hear from people across the country in corporate America, boy, college is a waste of time. Boy, I wish I never would have gone. Now I have $60,000 in debt, $70,000 in debt. I wanted to start a business, but now I don't have the credit to do it. Instead, we are wasting our most prized possession, our 18 to 22-year-olds, to go stick them at many universities when they shouldn't be here in the first place. And it is a failed project. It is making us poorer. It is and by the way, just look at the actual numbers over a period of time. Has it worked? Is homeownership now going up for young college graduates? So everyone in the audience here, how many of you have had to take classes that are a waste of time, that you wish you didn't have to take, that are a waste of money, and that every single hand goes up? Look around. Look around. They're scamming every kid in this audience. They are forcing them to take classes that make them poorer, that take up their time in order to get the credential. That is an institutional scam. And by the way, every other part of life is all about your own customization. Your Netflix account, how you get your burrito bowl, from how you dress, your Amazon cart is you are in charge. But you come to college and they say you must go take these 3, 4, 5 classes that are very expensive, especially for you out-of-state students, to go further into debt, study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist. That sounds like a scam. You don't, this idea that engineering, a 4-year degree, you could also just learn to code in 6 months and work for Salesforce and earn $180,000 a year.
Coding's hard, Charlie.
You have to go to college to learn to code? Secondly, what does a manager of a Walmart supercenter make a year?
What,
It's $400,000 a year. They don't require, yeah, you guys should just go become a manager of a Walmart. Doesn't require a college degree. What does the average plumber make in Scottsdale, Arizona? $115,000 a year. There are 11 million job openings in this country right now that don't require college degrees. We are oversupplying college. We could both go back and forth of like independent trivial facts when it comes to the woman's reproductive system, but here's something we all know, because God wrote this on the human heart of every individual. We know deep down it's wrong to murder a baby.
You're not murdering a baby. It's not a baby.
Okay, well let's play this out. What is it then?
It is an embryo, which is not a baby.
Well, okay, so it's a fertilized embryo.
Correct, which is not a baby.
So at what point does it become a baby?
When it is born.
Oh.
I don't agree with abortions up to full-term abortions.
Well, hold on, but you said it becomes a baby when it's born.
Yes.
Then why would you have abortion limits before it's born? I thought it's just an embryo. So embryo rights?
No, the embryo rights aren't a
But
thing.
then where would you draw a line for abortion then, and why, and under what moral standard? I mean, first and foremost, try your best to graduate high school, make the most of your life. You know, maybe go to 2-year college or technical school. I mean, these are just general life advice. I mean, if you want to stay out of poverty, it's not hard in America, by the way. And everyone in this audience, it's not hard. It's very easy to stay out of poverty. You want to know how to stay out of poverty? Don't commit crimes. Get married before you have kids. Get a job, any job. Yeah, exactly. Get a job, any job, right? And be like not awful with money. You do those 4 things, you can stay out of what is classified as poverty in this country.
What we should do is we should configure all of our force and our attention against our true enemy, the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party is our true enemy, not the people of Russia.
But moving forward, Russia and China have always enjoyed very good relations with each other. In recent times, we've seen Trump has been trying to get closer to Putin and potentially establish a connection with Russia. Do you think that would be more economically beneficial to America as in contrast to us being with NATO?
Which part?
Us aligning more with Russia than we are with NATO.
Well, we're not. I mean, I think that, but first of all, remember, Russia wanted to be part of NATO back in the early 2000s. There is not a good argument to overly antagonize Russia the way that we have. We should be friends with both, but...
There's not that many places like that.
Hey, Charlie. I just got a question regarding the drug problem within the U.S. What's a legitimate fix to this? I think we can't really just let anyone.
I mean, we first need to close the southern border. That's
of
number
course.
one. We need to have death penalty for drug dealers. That's number two. And we need to have much harsher penalties for anyone that is involved in the trafficking of drugs. And then we have to go after the actual supply, which is the Mexican drug cartels.
I think that's true, but isn't that taking a alcohol prohibition type method where that?
I mean, it worked. Alcohol prohibition worked in one way. Alcohol usage went down. But also, let's just stop acting as if heroin and alcohol are on the same level. Heroin's way worse, right?
No.
Meth is way worse. Fentanyl's way worse.
Of course.
But yeah, I think we have to be more serious about what actually creates the cascade of effects of people that want to be able to use these horrific drugs.
Yeah. I just want to is there a plan we could go down to fix?
Yeah, I mean, I think President Trump's doing the right thing. Secure the southern border, heavy penalties for drug traffickers, and going after the source of where all the drugs are coming from origination. So, thank you very much. Great question. Thank you.
I mean, we have class things.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a hat?
Yeah.
Why do you think college is a scam?
So, half of this audience, if you get a job, will get a job that doesn't require a college degree. 41% of kids that enter college will not graduate. And the vast majority of kids, 60 to 70% that go to college, I believe study things that are completely worthless, meaningless, and don't enrich society at all.
But is that the fault of the student or the college? Because I looked in the stats for this. It's usually because they either don't have the finances to support themselves going to college.
So wait, do you have you're on grant or what?
I'm not going to discuss my college finances with
Well, no,
you.
this is really important. This is why you're so defensive of college.
Yeah.
This is why you're so forceful, because you don't have to walk around the rest of your life with $100,000 student loan debt.
I know plenty of people that have part-time jobs and go to college.
This explains you perfectly. I, the taxpayer, when I write my check to the IRS, I'm subsidizing your ability to go to college.
Okay. When
And I
I
think that's a
write
huge
my
mistake,
check to the IRS,
'cause-
I
'cause
also give money for people to go to college.
You should have skin in the game. You should, and you don't right now. You are doing a freeloading thing. Of course, you should be defensive of
I
college.
pay taxes. I pay federal taxes.
Yeah,
I pay state taxes.
I'm
Well,
sure I
state-
pay a
let's
little
say
bit more
income
than you, but
taxes,
that's a separate issue. But the point is this:
That's
that
probably true.
do you think you pay anywhere close to the tuition value you get at the school? Probably not. The average plumber after 18 months, $68,000 a year.
Well,
the
sure,
average
but the
welder,
plumber isn't able to
$72,000 a
study
year.
with peers.
The plumber didn't go to college. The plumber went to trade or technical school. There's 11 million job openings that do not require a college degree in this country.
Well, who
11
engineered the
million.
stuff plumbers use?
I'm sorry, what?
Who engineered the stuff plumbers use?
I'm sure someone here. I mean, it's like
someone with a
It's like
degree
saying who
from
designed the
college.
airplane for the pilot to fly. I mean,
Someone with a degree that went to college. Pilots go to
I'm not
college.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Your life had an agreed upon starting point, that starting point should be protected and preserved. And the excuses given for abortion is dehumanization. Oh, it's just an embryo. Guys, that's just using different language to justify the massacre of something smaller than you. That's all that it is. So here are the big objections. Size. It's smaller than me, then I should be able to get rid of it. I'm 6'5". Should I be able to murder people smaller than me? Of course not. You don't believe that. Level of development. Oh, it's not as progressed as, this is your argument. It's not as progressed as we are, therefore we have rights over it.
But we've never, ever seen a generation or a group of people so angry, so miserable, so medicated. And there's obviously something wrong. We know who are the happiest women in America. Women with 3 or more kids are the happiest women in America. Least suicidal. Yes, right? And by the way, it's not easy, but it's super deep. And so, again, if you want to go be a data scientist, God bless you. This is country, free country. Go do that. I just think that there's a part of the story that isn't being told, which is that the opposite should be like have kids as soon as possible, and then you can go pursue your career in your late 30s once your kids are 18 years old. And it's the opposite. You know, we tell people, wait. And by the way, when you reach your 30s, you might be infertile, you might have trouble having kids, you might need IVF, you might need all these other very, harsh treatments, and you might not even find a mate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Enjoy class.
Yeah, I think people need to date with the intent to marry. Yeah, I'm a big critic of hookup culture in its current form. I believe sex should be sacred and is sacred, and it's really thrown away way too generously in this society and culture. And I can tell you, I'm super blessed. I have the best wife in the world. We have an amazing life. Building a family is the coolest thing ever. And my prayer for all of you is that you one day can do that.
That's so cute.
It's honestly the most joyful thing. And I've had some pretty amazing experiences. I've been very, very blessed. Very lucky, you could say, but very blessed is the word I would use. And the greatest joy I've ever had is coming home to my little daughter running up to my leg. There's nothing that even comes close to it. Not flying on Air Force One, not meeting with presidents.
What would you like to say to your critics?
They're welcome to come to the microphone and say whatever they want to me, but they're intellectual cowards and they won't do that.
Okay,
you know how we heal our divides? By talking to people we disagree with.
I would agree with that.
We will get closer to a civil war if we act like that. We just yell at people we don't like. You dress with, I guess I'm all black, but, with masks on and just with stupid epitaphs. Okay, that's how you get closer to dividing the country. You heal the country when you allow disagreement and you allow a microphone with people that have differing views. But there are 11 million job openings in the country right now that pay $80,000 or more that don't require a college degree. 11 million job openings. And I don't think we're always telling our young people, the next generation, that these jobs are available to you. It's an expectation that you go to four-year college, and in fact, you're treated and almost considered to be dumb if you don't go to four-year university. And I think that's a big mistake, and not to mention the vast majority, 41% of kids that enter college do not graduate. There's something deeply wrong with the system.
So from what you're telling me, though,
final point.
From what you're telling me, though, it sounds more like...
Where do I derive my values as a political leader in the country? It starts with the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution. I believe the people we elect to run the government, even if they're the ones I disagree with, should be the ones who run the government, not the unelected bureaucrats who put up puppets as their U.S. president. I believe in merit, that the best person should get the job, free speech, open debate. And so all I'd say is, if you want to call yourself an independent, that's a pretty good thing to be. Hard to argue with being independent-minded. But stand for the values enshrined in our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And if there's a point in the future where the Republican Party abandons that, then I'm not a Republican anymore. The Republican Party actually was the party that stood against slavery back when Abraham Lincoln was president, and it's a party that stands against enslavement today. But if that ever changes in the future, then I'm out of the Republican Party. I'm into the pro-American movement. And the reason I vote and stand for election as a Republican is because right now that is the pro-American Party in America.
You're 30 years old. We can agree you're 30 years old. Right? Do you think that's a little bit silly?
Are you a voter?
I am a voter. I'm a registered voter.
I vote and you vote. So I'm talking to voters of this country that will determine the future of Western civilization. That's what I'm doing here today. Yeah? Wait, hold on. How is it any different than a professor talking to you?
Than a professor talking to you? Who are you?
Well, important enough for you to come up to a microphone.
Actually, when I first saw this ad, I thought it was like an improv comedy thing. It looked so ridiculous that I didn't even think it was real.
That's how you get the Senate versus the House to balance it out. Same thing with respect to the history of the Electoral College. This is about making sure that we're being thoughtful about the step of who's actually the U.S. president while channeling the democratic will through the manner enshrined in our Constitution. And here's the biggest difference between a republic and a democracy. This is relevant to a lot of young people. In a constitutional republic, it's not just about what you get. Right? In a democracy, you get a vote. You think about what does it mean to be a citizen, about what you get. In a constitutional republic, it's also about what you give. You're 8 times more likely to graduate from high school. You're 10 times more likely to end up in prison if you grew up in a single-parent household rather than a dual-parent household. You're more likely to end up in poverty if you grew up in a single-parent household. So I actually believe the nuclear family has been the single greatest building block of not only the United States of America. This is actually true for societies across time, even dating back to Aristotle, believing that the polity was built only around a strong household unit. And it's very personal to me. I mean, people often use the word privilege, okay? Well, I mean, I actually didn't grow up in wealth. I grew up with the ultimate privilege of 2 parents in the house, instilling in us belief in the family and belief with a faith in God. And so I think that is inherently good just economically.
In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
It's really not. I don't
It's
think it is.
45 million babies. It's nearly 8 times worse than the Holocaust. What's the moral difference between a small baby in the womb and a grown Jew who was killed at Auschwitz? What's the moral difference? One is
of them
older.
is a person.
What species is the baby in the womb?
It's a human, but it's
Therefore,
an
they should have
embryo.
human rights.
No,
They should have human rights.
I do not agree.
The biggest problem is not racism, it's the lack of dads. If dads are around, kids flourish. And you know who agreed with me? Barack Obama. Barack Obama used to make this a central piece of his campaign. He came to this campus back in 2012 and talked about how we need to rebuild the black family and put dads back. Why doesn't the Democrat Party talk about that anymore?
I'm fine with having
No,
fathers.
no,
I'm not against having black dads.
If you have family breakdown, don't worry about climate change. Don't worry about systemic racism. All that stuff is like these crazy abstractions.
I have found that I'm leaning a little bit more Republican, and I feel like I come at a standstill with that. And what advice do you have for me as a Republican aspiring social worker?
Here's one way to look at it. Great Society from Lyndon Johnson. It was a series of policies that were designed to help underprivileged communities.
Right.
They hurt the very people they were supposed to help. The reality is it created dependence on government. So you have a lot of single mothers, for example, that are paid more money not to have a man in the house.
Right.
But actually, the best way to get kids in your own household ahead is in a two-parent household. Household less likely to end up in jail, less likely to end up in poverty, more likely to graduate from high school. If you're asking for advice, I would say for the people around you, even who might lean left, you can recognize their intentions come from a good place, but the policies of their leaders have actually betrayed the very people they were supposed to help. We care about lifting people up from poverty. We just care about actually doing it rather than talking about it. That's what I would say.
Well, I tend to lean liberal on a lot of issues, but specifically on immigration, when I hear about like the Haitians in Ohio,
I have nothing against Haitians. We can all agree when you accept 5% of any country's population, in addition to all the other mass migration we have, it's too much, it's unsustainable. A government must start from this core premise. It must have an obligation to fulfill a better life for its own citizens before it opens its border to non-citizens. It's a very basic, fundamental thing. Under Donald Trump, the southern border was the most secure it was in American history, with border crossings at an all-time low. Under Kamala Harris, 10 million people have come across the southern border into this country. We have no idea who they are. What do you do with your broken life? Do you just golf all the time and fly around the world and hope things get better? Or do you get in the arena and fight for the country to the extent of where you get shot, you're under assassination attempts over every day, and your business empire gets taken from you? That's incredible virtue that I'm going to teach my kids about and say, even if your back is against the wall, you keep on fighting. I think that's incredibly virtuous.
Okay. And I understand I'm not going to change your mind on this. So this is mostly...
You asked for an explanation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So I respect that. Now, you mentioned children that you have and raising them by morals. I mean, this is somebody who's running for the president of the United States.
You talk about systemic racism and that being a major driver of Black America's failure to launch, if you will. We subsidize single motherhood in this country. So if you stay single as a single mother, you get money from the federal government, and it's basically subsidized, if you will.
Sure.
Can we at least agree that if the nuclear family in Black America was stronger and tighter knit, that would be a good thing?
In a lot of cases, yeah. I think if the father's abusive, I would not want him there. So I think it really depends on what family you're talking about. I don't think you can generalize.
What
and
percentage
say,
of fathers do you think are abusive?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I would say it's probably small, right?
Not I don't know. I have no idea. I have not done research on what percentage of fathers.
But
are
generally,
abusive.
it's good when mom and dad stays around and is raising the kid.
I find my hope in God and God's unconditional love for every single one of us. So no matter how dark the days may seem, and sometimes there are very dark days, and we face dark times in our future if we don't take action now and in this election. But even in those darkest of times where I find strength, where I find peace, and where I find courage to be a voice for common sense and the truth and freedom for all Americans, it comes from knowing that God's love is eternal and that He will give me that clarity and strength to do the right thing for the right reasons. What we do not sign up for is politicians who care more about feeding the military-industrial complex and the war machine than they do about our lives, but the safety and security of the American people's lives. What we need are leaders, and this is why I've endorsed President Trump in this election, who will always make those decisions in balancing. You asked a very good question. How do you balance the need for us to engage and stand with our allies and partners and put the American people's interests first? Every decision has to be made within the context of what serves the needs of the American people first. Period.
Because I identify as they, them, does that mean I can vote multiple times?
Well, have you voted already?
No, I have not.
Well, maybe since you...
That's a legitimate question,
It
actually.
is. Tulsi, do you want to take this? Well, I will tell you that since you haven't voted yet, maybe as they, them could vote for Trump-Vance 2024.
Okay. Can I vote twice?
Probably not.
Okay, then I'm not a they, them anymore.
But I will say, though, that you can cancel out any of your support with Kamala Harris by voting for Donald Trump.
I will be voting for Donald Trump in 2024.
Thank you, Bryce, for your question. Give it up for Bryce, everybody. It is reprehensible and wrong that the people that come here the right way are punished and the people that come here the wrong way are rewarded. That is wrong.
Yes.
The people that cut in line get left. If you follow the rules, you'll be rewarded. If you break the rules, you will be punished. That is what Trump will do as president.
Thank you so much.
He will end the weaponization of government against political opponents, and we will not live in a country where you go to jail just because you have different ideas. Those are just some off the top of my head, and Tulsi can continue.
Thank you.
I think you covered the greatest hits, Charlie. I just want to take the opportunity to give a shout out. I was in Reno last night at a University of Nevada Reno women's volleyball game. These women are taking a stand against biological males in their sport. They are forfeiting a game. They're a D1 team forfeiting a game because they refuse to play against San Jose State that has a biological male on their team.
Right, and you're pregnant, right? You're 10 years old and pregnant, okay? So you really can't give birth through your womb. You can't give birth to that.
So you do a C-section.
How?
You cut them open and you lift the baby up and everyone lives.
How does the baby survive?
Hopefully through a work of God and also medical technology that is the most common surgery in America. So I'll kind of close with this and then we'll get to the next question because we're running low on time. When does life begin?
At first breath.
At first breath. That moral standard of first breath would therefore believe that you could have abortion up until the moment of birth. When does life begin?
At first breath.
At first breath. That moral standard of first breath would therefore believe that you could have abortion up until the moment of birth. Life begins at conception. I'm going to say this as nicely as I possibly can. You're a drummer at a church. You should probably reconsider that because you are advocating for the most horrific and brutal eugenic, non-Christian abortion policies that I could possibly imagine. I hope you prayerfully reconsider and repent. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I know that as a black person, I am far more likely to be arrested for expressing my view, whether I am a conservative or a liberal. And I've done it on both sides. And oh yes, I was arrested.
You were probably being a jerk. That's
why
why you were
actually,
arrested,
and
not
that's the
because
best
of the
part.
color
And that's
of
the
your
best
skin.
part, right? That's the best part. I wasn't even being a jerk. And the courts even found, our beloved courts.
Let me make sure I understand this. So you think the bigger problem than fathers not being in the home is a abstract conspiracy theory that you have that hecklers and jerks at political events are arrested because of the color of their skin? That's the best definition of institutional racism.
No, that's not my definition on racism. I did
Give
tell
me
you what
an
my
example
definition
of something a white man like me can do that a black man like you can't do. Because guess
Oh,
what?
for one-
If I showed
for
up
one-
at a DeSantis event and
sure.
started heckling, I'd be
Sure.
kicked out and arrested.